Today I effed up by accidentally announcing I'm pregnant. As some of you may know, it's Father's Day tomorrow in the UK. So as tradition goes, I got my dad a Father's Day card. No harm done, right? Wrong. Being the absolute comedian, I am decided to get my dad a card aimed at grandfathers because he is old and I wanted to rub it in his face. So, my day starts off normal. I visit my parents, I drop off the card and a present for the old man and I go off on my merry way. What I didn't know was that my dad decided to open the card a day earlier and proceeded to take it completely the wrong way. Not even an hour ago I look at my phone and I have 10 missed calls from my dad and 7 from my mum. Accompanied by text messages from my mum asking if I was pregnant and if it was an accident or not. Confused, I called her and she demands to know the answer. Before I could even get a word, she just starts whipping in joy, shouting about how she can't wait to be a grandma and how my dad hasn't stood up or even moved after reading the card. I had no idea what she was talking about until she mentioned the care that said grandpa on it. They had both assumed that was my way of announcing that I was pregnant with my first child. I immediately just burst into laughter, barely able to get my words out, my mum flabbergasted, trying desperately to find out why I was currently dying down the phone. I managed to get my composure and tell her that I was not in fact pregnant and was taking the absolute mick out of my dad's lack of pigment in his hair. After explaining, my mum was understandably disappointed but also did find the humor in the card and agreed that my dad's hair did look like the top of Mount Everest. My dad finally stood up and called me every swear word he could think of whilst defending his hair, stating it was a fashion statement. He did say thank you for the card though. Today I effed up thinking we had bed bugs. My wife and I have been a bit itchy lately and started noticing small bite marks. Then the other night I noticed a small bug crawling on me, probably the size of a poppy seed. I started inspecting the bed more and discovered dozens of them around our head and pillow area. After doing a bunch of online research, it really seemed like they were bed bugs. We started going through the signs and felt so stupid. We had seen some black splotches on our pillows and thought it was just sweat spots, but now realized it was from the bed bugs. I had seen some random specks of dirt in the bed and thought nothing of it, but then realized it must have been the bed bug shells. We notified our landlord but he wouldn't pay for treatment and said since it wasn't an apartment that it was our responsibility because we must have gotten some old furniture or clothes that brought the bed bugs with them. We thought about it but couldn't think of any way the bed bugs came. Nonetheless, we contacted an exterminator and scheduled an appointment. We cancelled all of our upcoming plans with friends. We got someone willing to babysit even with the bugs and did an aggressive deep clean of all the rooms. We washed all the bedding, linens, laundry, pillows, vacuumed every gap possible. Under the box spring we found further proof of the bed bugs by finding some red splotches around the box spring staples. We put the vacuum outside in a bunch of garbage bags. Even after all the cleaning, we immediately found dozens more bed bugs crawling around us. We were mortified and didn't know what else to do, so just had to spend multiple sleepless nights waiting in the same bed, because we didn't want the bed bugs to spread to other rooms. When the exterminator finally came, I was able to show him a sample of the bugs we caught on a piece of tape. He examined them with a magnifying glass and immediately said they weren't bed bugs, but they were mites. We had a bird's nest right outside our window that we had left because we didn't want to hurt the birds. Well, it turns out there was a dead bird in it that was absolutely infested with mites, and they were crawling through the window looking for more food. He inspected everything else and none of it was bed bugs. The pillow was just sweat spots, the box spring staples were just rusty. We had to pay a few $100s for the exterminator to dispose of the nest and spray for mites, and our bed bug problem is finally gone.
If you're enjoying this so far, please like and subscribe.
Today I effed up by getting paramedics called because I breathed helium. This event is one of the only times I've felt mortal fear and is now a frequent reference in my friend group. It all started when I brought a helium balloon home from a party at work. My wife and I were hosting our weekly game night with 4 of our friends, and as food was getting ready to be served, I took a breath of helium and did the funny high voice thing. Ha ha, cool, let's move on, right? Wrong. I wanted to make sure I got all the helium out of my lungs, so I took a nice big breath of fresh air and exhaled deeply to get everything out. My toes fell asleep, so I figured it was the lack of oxygen in the lung full of helium, so I continued taking slow, deep breaths since I obviously didn't want to hyperventilate. After 30 seconds or so my legs got tingly and it just continued to get worse for the next minute or two. I didn't know why, so figured I hadn't eaten enough that day and so wasn't handling whatever the hell was in that balloon, so I laid down on the ground continuing to take very slow, deep breaths. Another 5 minutes went by and things took a turn. My legs were now propped up against a wall to help keep blood in my body and head because I could no longer feel my legs. My arms were splayed out on the floor and not only could I not lift them but my fingers were curled inward in a constant clench because I'd completely lost control of them. I couldn't feel any of my limbs, breathing was getting tedious, and I was starting to slur my speech. My wife and everyone else was getting really concerned about what the hell was going on. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I'd like to have them get here before I lost the ability to communicate. Another 5 or so minutes went by and there was now a police car, ambulance, and fire truck in our driveway with the associated public servants in my house, gathered around my useless, unresponsive body laying on the floor. My speech was severely slurred at this point to the degree where the paramedics were having trouble understanding me. Luckily my wife was able to translate. My lips were turning blue, my mouth was as dry as the Sahara Desert, I'd lost all feeling in and control of my limbs, and my diaphragm was in pain from maintaining breathing. I was laying there thinking, am I actually going to die because I took a breath from a helium balloon in? What else was in that? One of our friends was crying in the other room because she thought she was watching her friend slowly die. My wife was just trying to hold it together and not panic so she could translate my slurred speech for the paramedics, and I was wondering when the pain in my diaphragm would stop and hoped that I would just wake up better in the hospital. The EMT took a blood oxygen measurement. 0.97%. Weight, 97% interrobang. That sounds normal. That's normal, right? Yup. It was. Ya know what wasn't normal? My blood CO2 level. They didn't measure it, but I was showing all the symptoms. Ya see, when you breathe too much, also called hyperventilation, your body removes CO2 from your bloodstream, but having some CO2 is necessary for normal function. It causes your blood vessels to relax and allows oxygen to get into your extremities. When the CO2 level gets too low, the blood vessels constrict and the oxygen in your blood, even if there's plenty of it, can't reach everywhere in your body. That's what caused me to lose control of my limbs and lose feeling in them. The diaphragm soreness? That's because it was working super hard with less oxygen than normal, so it was like running while holding your breath, anaerobic exercise. Normally when people hyperventilate they do it over a couple of seconds in a panic, pass out, their body returns to normal breathing, and they wake up in a less panicked state and return to normal breathing. Me? I wasn't panicking, which was the problem. The official recommendation from the EMT? Stop breathing. Well, breath normally. That would allow the CO2 from my muscles to naturally return my blood oxygen, CO2 ratio to normal and I'd recover. Another 5 to 10 minutes went by and I recovered just fine. The EMT said, I've seen people hyperventilate, but I've never seen someone do it slowly over the course of 15 minutes. After a $100 charge for emergency services and a fun game night to recover, we now have a great story to reminisce about. Now whenever my friend group is saying goodbye to someone who's about to do something even somewhat dangerous, we say, don't breathe too much. Today I effed up by giving someone thumbs up while I passed them in the slow lane. I can be an angry driver, so to work on that I've started giving people thumbs up instead of the middle finger. It helps me have a better attitude and I find myself being frustrated less while driving when I don't let anger be my reaction. Well, today that backfired on me. Although who knows what would have happened if I escalated to a middle finger. I was driving behind two cars in the fast lane on my way home from grocery shopping with my young son. The slow lane was wide open and the truck in front in the fast lane was driving just under the speed limit. So I change lanes and pass on the right, giving my usual courtesy thumbs up as I pass the truck. A couple miles up the road, I get into the left turn lane and am stopping for the red light. Well, that truck wasn't turning and they had a green light, so they were going 60 to 65 miles per hour as they drove past me. They threw a live bang bang shell at my truck as they passed, hitting the flat back window of my pickup, right behind my son's head. It was so loud my ears were ringing and my son started crying. Luckily the window didn't break, and we're both fine now. But damn was I fuming when I saw the shell and realized that's what he threw at me. I reported them to the police, who said they will check the cameras at the intersection. So fingers crossed there's consequences for them. Do you have a secret little subreddit that is a favorite? Share it in the comments and it could become the next big thing.